is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
This is very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
And a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to SimSpeed TV's live and exclusive coverage for round number 4 of the Circuit Excel eSeries, coming to you tonight from a classic Australian racing circuit, the now defunct Oran Park Raceway. Great to be back at this classic venue. Lockie Mansell's my name. David Haynes is joining me in the commentary box this evening. David, we've had some great entertainment in the last 3 rounds of the Excel eSeries, especially last week, the Enduro at Phillip Island, which came right down to the last lap.
Oh, that race was absolutely amazing. It was great to be with you for that one, and it's great to be back once again a week later with a lot of the same drivers, the same car, and this time for the sprint race format back again and at Oran Park, so it's going to be good.
Thoroughly looking forward to it, that is for sure. Let's have a look at the championship standings coming into this round. And Ethan Grigold, who was the overall winner in the opening 2 rounds of the championship at Laguna Seca and Brands Hatch, he's got a pretty commanding lead, 123 points back to Aaron Oliver in second position. Tommy Saunter-Chun, who was the winner of the Phillip Island Enduro last week, he's third on the points table, and then it's Ben Bargwana and Techstar McCoy rounding out your top 5.
Yeah, and then behind them in 6th place, Matt Brunt. It's very, very close in this part of the field here, so points going to be super important. 7th place, Dylan Burst, we've seen can be very quick in qualifying. See how he goes in these sprint races at Oran Park. Brock Feeney, a name that is getting more well-known out there, and he's in 8th in the standings here. And then equal for 9th points there. Cannot get any closer between Daniel Hetterscheid and Jordan Caruso.
Indeed, so that is the top 10 as they sit at the moment. Definitely consistency is the key, with points awarded all the way down to 30th position in this series. And such has been the popularity of the Circuit Excel eSeries presented by Shannon's Insurance that tonight we've actually had to split up the field into 2 separate grids. A bit like what happens in real-life Excel racing in states like Victoria, where sometimes there are so many cars that turn up for rounds of that championship that they do have to split the field up into a couple of different grids. So what will happen tonight is we've already had qualifying The top 35 cars will be the ones that race in the top split, which is the ones that will be broadcast on SimSpeed TV tonight. The cars that missed out on the top 35, they will race in at the second split. Race format for tonight, we've got a pair of 30-minute races with no pit stops, so 30-minute sprint races, and no reverse grids or anything like that tonight. It's pure progressive grid. So where you finish race number 1 will set your grid positions for race number 2. We do have some cameras bringing us. I was about to say in-car cameras, but that's not very accurate. But it almost looks a bit like Ben Smith was trying to make it look like an in-car shot because he had his crash helmet on. But great to get that webcam view of Ben Smith tonight. And very shortly, Lachlan Manif is going to take us for a tour of the Oran Park Grand Prix circuit.
Hey guys, Lachlan Manif here. Join me for a lap around Oran Park in the 41 Audi RS3 TCR car. Here's a quick look around my rig. Fanatec V3 pedals, Thrustmaster wheelbase, triple screens on a Leggera sim racing rig with a real Sparko seat. Enjoy the lap. Starting a lap of Oran Park in the Audi RS3 TCR car. Over the start finish line now in 5th gear, just pulling 6th gear before the left hand sweeper at turn 1. Really fast corner, hustling the car, carrying as much corner speed as you can, and slowing the car down on the nose here before turn 2. Down to 3rd gear, really focusing on exit speed and putting the power down well. Into turn 3, 4th back to 3rd, hustle the car over the curbs, focusing on the exit before hustling the car again through turn 4. Really slow speed section through here, carrying as much speed as you can and putting the power down. Over the Yokohama Bridge, one of my favourite sections of the track. Car gets light, front end goes away, and then opposite here, down the dip, get all the grip back on the uphill section. Awesome corner through here again, through in 4th gear. Out of turn 9, we are up into the dogleg section. As much curb as you can on the right, as much as you can on the left through 5th gear, quite a fast corner, and dive down into the braking zone for the final turn. Really focusing on the exit here in 3rd gear, getting a good run on the straight before crossing the start finish line again for a lap of Oran Park in the Audi RS3 TCR car. Oran Park, a track famous for providing action in touring cars. This week's Circuit Excel round will be no different.
Thanks, Lockie, for taking us on that guided tour around the Oran Park circuit. Obviously, TCR cars have never raced at the Oran Park circuit in real life, and nor will they, but great that they can do laps around this classic Australian track in the virtual world. And there is Lachlan Manif's Leggera Sim Racing Gamer Gear Direct Audi RS3 TCR car on screen at the moment. And one of the things, David, with these TCR cars, particularly at a track like Oran Park where you do have quite a lot of low-speed corners, it's very important to try and get the car straightened up as quickly as you can on the exit of those slow corners to minimise the amount of wheel spin.
Yeah, traction out of the corners, difficult in these cars at all circuits, but here there's definitely a little bit of stop-start, turn 1 and 2, and then the section around the bridge there. Getting that traction, definitely very, very important. Not sure that his crew have quite cut up the vinyl for the window banner correctly, but everyone else ought to be running the Shannon's window banners front and back. Great to have them on board with the series. Also, some other companies supporting both Circuit Excel in the real world and also the eSeries. We've heard that it's the SA Motorsport tyres going to be providing a free set of real tyres to the South Australian competitor who finishes the highest at the end of this season in the championship standings. So there's a lot of bragging rights going on between states in this championship, I would think, but also something on the line for those South Australian drivers out there. And Aaron Oliver is currently, I believe, in the box seat for that one, Lockie.
Indeed, he is currently running second outright in the overall point standings, and big thank you to Matthew and Elisa Tatani and the rest of the crew there from the South Australian Excel series who have been instrumental in putting this A-series together. Thanks, guys. It is very much appreciated. One of the things that we will be talking about tonight is tyre management, and we saw that it was a big factor at Phillip Island last week where obviously we had the 1 hour endurance race with pit stops, and some teams elected to change tyres while other teams didn't. The teams that did choose to change tyres certainly had the advantage. No pit stops or strategies per se tonight, but driving technique and how you're able to preserve those tyres over the 30-minute race distances that we've got will still be very much a factor this evening.
Yeah, indeed. Especially, we saw some pretty hot track temperatures at Phillip Island a week ago, and it's looking pretty hot out there in the sun today as well. I'm currently seeing track temperatures during the warm-up of 52 degrees Celsius, so that's on the warmer side, and the tyres on iRacing definitely do react to those temperatures in terms of how much grip you've got, how much slip angle you can give, and of course, how quickly those tyres give up. So it's certainly the case that drivers who are just a bit too aggressive too early still might fade towards the end compared to those who have a bit of a lighter touch on the steering, on the throttle, and on the brake.
I can remember that as a kid when I used to go out to Oran Park, because it was one of the circuits that I grew up with, being born and raised in Sydney, that I can remember watching races there in pretty much every type of weather condition that you could imagine, from boiling hot to freezing cold and pouring with rain and just about everything in between. So nice that obviously in the virtual world we can lock in the weather conditions, but you're right, when it is warmer, as it is for this particular race, then that will make tyre conservation all the more important.
Well, we've got about a minute left of warm-up before we head towards the first race session. We are currently looking at Aaron Oliver, as you said, second outright, and currently the leading of all of the South Australian drivers. I'm sure when he gets back to the racetrack sometime, he'll be very, very thankful for that free set of tyres. He's currently on his way towards winning. Don't count your chickens before they hatch on that one. He's also doing well in the warm-up here. I believe he qualified pretty well as well, so that's always good in this progressive grid format to start off race one on the front foot.
Jaden Wanzek's had so much bad luck in the first few rounds of this series, particularly remember the round at Brands Hatch where he got taken out by backmarkers in both of the races while he was running in pretty strong position. So he'll be looking for a solid and trouble-free run tonight to hopefully bank some points, because as things stand at the moment for Jaden Wanzek, he is all the way down in 21st position in the championship, and you would have to say, based on the speed that he's shown, he deserves to be a lot further up the order than that.
So we do head towards the race session. That gives us the opportunity, Lockie, to take a look at the grid.
So the field forming up behind the safety car, and it's Ethan Grigalt who continues his perfect record in qualifying. 4 pole positions from 4 rounds for Ethan Grigalt. Ben Smith out of grid position 2, and then it's Dylan Burse in 3rd position. Lee Harrison in 4th. Jordan Ross, who came within 3 corners of winning the Enduro at Phillip Island last week, out of grid position number 5. Jaden Wanzek, who we were just talking about, in 6th position. And then it's Jack Boyd, Aaron Oliver, last week's round winner Tommy Saunter-Chun, and Matthew Brunt completing the top 10.
Does look like we've got 35 or 36 drivers for this race, and on the grid then in 11th place is Scotty Harris, Andrew Hobby in 12th, Dale Carpenter in 13th, Lachlan Manif, whose video we saw, is going to start out of 14th. Let's hope that practice pays off for him. Brock Feeney in 15th, Cine there in 16th. Ben Barguana is going to start out as 17th, and Texstar McCoy has 18th on the grid. Chelsea Angelo there in 19th, and Scott Stephenson with 20th.
Back to Sam Christensen in 21st position, James Simpson in 22nd, Riley Buick in 23rd position ahead of Ryan Casher, Mitchell McGarry and Liam Hines. Back to Harry Inwood in 27th position, Shane Nowich in 28th position, Chris Donnelly in 29th, and Hayden Jericho rounding out the top 30.
Green flag waves, we get underway for race 1, and they fan out wide across the pit straight, Lockie.
Good start from Ben Smith from the outside of the front row, but Textar McCoy will be on that inside position. But look at them fanning out. Jordan Ross having a big look down the inside, and we've got one car launching across the grass at turn number 1. And that's going to create absolute pandemonium with a few drivers having to go left and right to take evasive action there. Quite amazed, actually, that there were not more cars involved in that incident. And here is the battle for the lead. Ben Smith up the inside at turn number 3, makes the move through on Ethan Grigault, and Dylan Burse is going to pounce on that opportunity as well. So Ethan Grigault gets forced wide and loses a couple of positions.
Tyres can be pretty cold. The first couple of laps takes a little while before you can be more confident with the throttle, more confident with where you place the car. Maybe some of these drivers started with higher pressures, have a bit more confidence right now, but might fade later on. We'll see about that one, but obviously a great start from Ben Smith and Dylan Burse, who moved themselves up some spots. Ethan Grigault's been very, very strong in this car, so maybe he can come back at them, but it's still very close, mainly single file in our top 10.
Really important to get a good exit out of the corner, but look at that, Andrew Hobby bumping the wall as he came out of that 12th and final corner on the racetrack. The old saying at Oran Park was that if you didn't graze your rearview mirror up against that concrete wall on the exit of the last corner, you were not trying hard enough, but that was a fairly sizable thump into the wall there for Hobby. Hopefully for him that hasn't done any damage to the steering or suspension components.
Got the onboard camera with your leader, Ben Smith, there. And as for Andrew Hobby, he's just dropped back one more spot, but he is still up 5 from where he started. So he is having a lightning start despite that little graze of the wall.
And really important here for Ben Smith as well. He needs to get some race victories to claw back some of the ground that he's lost in the championship over the last couple of rounds. He was actually second behind Ethan Grigault in the opening round at Laguna Seca, but then he had an absolute shocker in round 2 at Brands Hatch, as you will recall, and tumbled all the way outside the top 10 in the championship. And as things stand at the moment, he is 11th in the points. So he's got the pace, Ben Smith, but he needs to convert that into some race victories to claw back some ground in terms of the championship situation.
As we ride on board here, Scott Stevenson got shuffled out of the order a little bit. Think he might have lost 2 spots there. And up at the front, Dylan Burse has had a bit of drama through turns 1 and 2 as well. He's dropped back from 2nd. Now looks like he's in 5th.
Yeah, so unsighted by us, Dylan Burse has dropped back. We'll have a look at a Motum simulation replay to pick up exactly what's happened there with Dylan Burse.
Definitely 2nd as he came across the line, and then just out a bit wide, bit of contact from Ethan Grigault in turn 1. Struggles for Lee Harrison too, as you see these cars are very, very sensitive to any kind of contact at the back. The tail gets out very, very easily, very tail happy in these cars, so you got to be careful who you're racing close to. So you see a big move from Manif down the inside of the final corner on Chelsea Angelo, and again maybe a little tap to the rear fender there. I think Angelo is in the Astron-Tac car, just going to hold on to that one for the minute. Passing, I think, is pretty tough around Oran Park.
So Lachlan Manif's lost some spots in these first couple of laps because they qualified inside the top 15, but he gets the job done on Chelsea Angelo through turn number 1, the high-speed left-hand kick. Actually quite a tricky part of the racetrack because you have to try and straighten the car up before you get hard on the brakes for turn 2. And we've got Jaden Wanzek off the road. So we were talking about the bad luck that he's endured in the opening few rounds. Unfortunately, the tales of woe are going to continue for Jaden Wanzek because he goes tumbling outside the top 10.
Going to get a Modem simulation replay of that one. Goes for the big move on Ross, potentially, and he has not judged that correctly. He's come in very hot and slid across the nose there. It's put him well off the circuit, and then I think he had a little bit of a graze against a tyre barrier on the way back. Remains to be seen how much damage he picked up from that one, but an ambitious move, and he just didn't have the traction for it.
He came in very hot there into turn number 3, and as Jordan Ross went to turn right. He made contact with the rear of Wanzek's car, and that's what sent Wanzek going spiralling off the road. But in terms of the contest for the lane here, it's well and truly on because Ethan Grigolt has caught up to Ben Smith. He looks down the inside into turn 3. And Ben Smith manages to keep the door shut there. But Ethan Grigolt, who has been the class of the field so far in the Circuit XL A-Series, keeping the pressure on.
Pace of the field, maybe not the strategists of the field last week, but on the fresh tyres they were certainly quick before they faded later on. Those front two starting to break away from the rest of the pack, and some of the great battles a little bit further behind. Looking at Ben Bargwanna, he's borrowed his dad's car and potentially his dad's iRacing account there as well. He's right up behind another well-known name, Brock Feeney, and Tommy Saunter Jr., winner from a week ago, who are maybe not doing quite as well in the sprint format, but looking at 10th place there. Qualified 9th, though, as there's a big drift from Feeney. He's going to go out wide. Bargwanna is going to seize the opportunity.
Again, just came into that final corner a bit too hot there. Brock Feeney locked the rear brakes, and that forced him off the racing line. Ben Bargwanna was able to seize the opportunity. Actually, Ben Bargwanna, so far in this iRacing series for the XLs, he's taken a bit after his dad, Jason Bargwanna, and in that he always races better than he qualifies. He doesn't necessarily qualify that close to the sharp end of the field, Ben Bargwanna, but he's always able to make up positions during the races. And speaking of making up positions, well, Ethan Grigolt might make up one here coming off the bridge. A big look to the inside of Ben Smith. Almost had an overlap there, but Ethan Grigolt menacing the rear of the pit box sponsored car that lies just ahead of him on the racetrack. And if these two start battling and dicing with one another, it's only going to allow the next group of cars behind, Jordan Ross, Dylan Burse, and Jack Boyd, to close in.
Yeah, certainly is the case, but Burse is now under a bit of pressure from Jack Boyd as well, so it is now all close in our packs in the top 10. There's no one in the top 12 who isn't within a second of another car, so close track producing close racing.
A bit like real XL racing in that regard, isn't it? In the real life Circuit XL series that we see, it's always the case that no matter where you are on the circuit, no matter what sort of lap times you're running, chances are you will always find somebody else in the field who is running around similar sorts of lap times so you can have a battle with.
Yeah, I went and I checked some onboards during the week, and I think these TCR cars use fifth gear a little bit more often than the XLs do. Oh, a bit of bump and rub there.
Riley Buick got together with the very similarly painted car that was just ahead of him on the racetrack, and Lachlan Manif was the big winner there because he basically got 2 positions for the price of 1 at turns 3 and 4.
Manif was very forceful coming through, but like you said, started out at 14th, was down at 20th not so long ago. Manif's now trying to race back up through the field. I wouldn't call it a stretch to suggest that Buick and Stevenson might be teammates there.
I think that's a fair assumption as we look back at this battle for the lead of the motor race, and Ben Smith continues to hold on from Ethan Grigolt. You get the feeling that Ethan Grigolt's got a bit more pace at his disposal at the moment, and if he can get past Ben Smith, then chances are he'll start to pull away. But Ben Smith's defensive driving so far has been textbook. He's not leaving the door open for Grigolt to be able to make the passing manoeuvre.
Huge drift behind from Dylan Burse, who got the rear unsettled, loses out a spot to Jack Boyd, who's now one of our big chargers from 7th to 4th here. So Jack Boyd's getting into his stride, as at the front of the field, Smith just doesn't appear to be making any mistakes that are giving an opportunity to Grigolt. It's been close like this lap after lap. Here comes a move.
Up the inside into turn 12. The move presented itself there. Grigolt draws alongside Ben Smith, and then they'll bang doors heading down the straight. But Grigolt will have the preferred inside line when they get down to turns 1 and 2. So I'll tell you what, there wasn't much space there. They make contact, and it's Grigolt who gets fired off the racetrack. They were side by side, and Grigolt, our championship leader, is in the wall at turn number 2. I thought that he had the move done there, but they were just so close as they headed down through turn number 1, a section of the circuit where the race cars are right on the limit of adhesion and preparing to brake and turn at the same time.
I think Greg Galt thought he'd found enough overlap that he was owed the space to track all the way out through the kink there, and I think Ben Smith was very intent on holding that too wide as long as he possibly could. And again, like I've said, a little bit of contact at the back of these cars, and they are very, very light back there. Now some damage to the front for Ethan Greg Galt, who 2 races in a row, he's looked like he's had the pace of the field and struggled.
And with the damage to that car, that's going to make him pretty much out of business for this race. And I'll tell you what, that's really going to hurt him for this round, because as mentioned at the top of the broadcast, it's a progressive grid tonight. So where you finish in race 1 determines your starting position for race number 2. So not only does it damage Ethan Greg Galt's chances in this race, he's also potentially now going to be faced with the task of a very lowly grid position for race 2.
Yeah, with the battle for first and second unfortunately broken up there, this now becomes the battle for second here. Jordan Ross has been closed in a little bit by Boyd and Burse. And then Burse, one of those drivers who was quite quick in qualifying, has looked pretty quick, but had just a couple little problems that's dropped him back some spots. So maybe he'll try to size up on this one, close it in. Fantastic battle, and Jordan Ross might like a bit of redemption after a week ago. I'm sure he's adequately fueled for this one.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure they've done their calculations meticulously for this week after what happened last week. For those of you who missed the 1-hour endurance race for the Circuit Excel eSeries at Phillip Island last Saturday night, Jordan Ross was leading. He had a commanding margin, but then on the very last lap coming out of turn number 10, his car coughed and spluttered, and in the end it ground to a halt, and he was left with nothing that he could do as the second and third placed and fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth and 10th placed and so on cars all cruised past because he was out of gas. Now,
fixed setup in this championship would control the amount of fuel everyone starts with, and if that's the correct number, then everyone will be starting with plenty.
So, just coming back to that incident, David, down at turn number 1 between Ethan Greg Galt and Ben Smith. Not sure about you, but my adjudication on that incident is that it was a racing incident. I don't think that you could blame either one of the drivers any more than the other for that one. I think they were both racing hard for position, and it was just very unfortunate contact between the cars, and it was Ethan Greg Galt who obviously came off second best.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those ones you'd have to see a couple angles of it before you could really be confident to say anyone was majorly at fault in that one. Obviously, both guys were racing for the lead, are very experienced on the iRacing platform and with these cars, and so both of them had a lot of confidence to try and battle that down into turns 1 and 2, and unfortunately it just wasn't quite enough room for them around here.
So after that incident, the car of Ethan Greg Galt's down in 33rd position. He has come in for a pit stop to get the damage repaired. So number 1, he needs to try and get up into the top 30 because points are rewarded down to 30th position. So he needs to make up another 3 spots just to get into the points. But apart from that, any position that he can make up in this race is one extra position that he gets to start further forward in the next race. So he still needs to try and salvage something from this race, Ethan Greg Galt, but potentially a championship-changing moment in the Circuit Excel eSeries. As we look at this battle between second, third and fourth position, Jordan Ross, Jack Boyd and Dylan Burse, which has been going on pretty much all race long between these drivers. And just as is so often the case in iRacing, I think that ultimately it's going to get resolved in favour of who makes the least mistakes.
Yeah, indeed. Boyd's still very close lap after lap here to Jordan Ross. Is it going to be a Hail Mary? Is it maybe going to be the intervention of traffic? Because we're looking at, about 70-second laps around the Grand Prix layout of Oran Park here. We took the best 35 drivers from qualifying for this main race, this main group, but But still, eventually the field spread, even in a sprint race like this, will mean that our top couple of cars are going to come across potentially some wounded cars, potentially some cars that are just a couple seconds off pace, and that might start to play a role in some of the top cars. Oh, this is what's going to do it, though. Jordan Ross has a drift and loses out one spot. Here comes Dylan Burst through the flip-flop to try and take it away. They make contact. Now Burst is in the wall.
Dear, oh dear. Side by side through the dog-leg at Oran Park is never going to end well. And whenever you have a crash there, it's going to be a fast one. You head over the rise, and then on the right-hand side, there's a gravel trap that they actually installed there. Would have been in the late 1990s. It didn't actually used to be there, that gravel trap. In the original configuration of Oran Park, it was just grass and you were straight in the wall. Let's have another look at the replay here. So it was an initial mistake from Jordan Ross heading up into the off-cab left-hander at Sutton's Corner, as it used to be known. And he lost momentum. He kept the boot in to try and keep it going. Dylan Burst tried to round him up. Jordan Ross was trying to get back to the racing line. And two cars made contact, and it was Dylan Burst who made heavy contact with the wall. So a couple of our main front runners in this Circuit Excel series sustaining damage. Dylan Burst now back in the pits with significant damage to his TCR car.
Yeah, real shame that one, and it breaks up the fight that we were having for second place, but never fear because it's always close. A little bit further back, we've got Ryan Casher, Lee Harrison. Harrison was a really strong qualifier this round and unfortunately dropped back a little bit, so here comes the recovery, looking for an unconventional move on Casher. Haven't seen many overtakes happen in that corner so far, but Lee Harrison makes it stick.
Sutton's Corner is always a tricky corner to overtake because, like I mentioned, it does run off cab or on the exit. So if you come in there too hot or with a racing line that's not quite ideal, very easy to go firing off the road, but good move there, and Lee Harrison grabs the spot.
Yeah, indeed he does, as he tries to move back towards the top 10 where he qualified in fourth. See, that car is looking like he's driving it to its limits as he goes a little wide there. Might even be side by side once again with Casher, but he'll have the inside for the next segment. A couple cars have sustained some damage in this race, and we're looking at another one. Podium simulation replay comes here for Riley Burke, and there's already maybe a little bit on that car. Is this going to happen in 1 and 2? Very high speed, not a lot of room for error here. Found plenty of people getting into that outside wall. That's happened very early. Has he got a bit of grass, a bit of dust, or a problem there?
He's actually pretty unlucky there because just the direction that car spun off the circuit, it ended up straight in that tyre bundle that's in the gravel trap down there. If he'd been a couple of metres to the left or the right, he probably would have been able to get away with that one, but not to be, unfortunately.
Got to battle 9th and 10th. That is the drivers whose iRacing name doesn't match who's behind the wheel. I believe we've got Geordie Cini and Ben Barguana here. Great to have them involved in this racing. They've both moved up 7 spots from where they qualified. So some of those problems we've seen for Grig Galt, for Ross, for Burst, these guys have picked up some positions and therefore potentially going to pick up some points. We are more than halfway through the first race of the evening. So a good time to be in the top 10. You can probably, hopefully, bring it home with less drama from here.
And the other interesting thing about Jordan Cini and Ben Barguana is that their real-life racing careers have both followed very similar trajectories as well. They've both started in the Victorian Excel racing series, and both of them subsequently stepped up into Formula Ford racing. So great to have both of those drivers as part of our Circuit Excel eSeries.
It is, and great to have them racing each other here. Close lap times between them. Slipstream probably not as strong around Oran Park as it was at Phillip Island, which is a lot more flat out, higher average speed there, but it might be doing something just a little bit for Ben Barguana. 2 laps in a row, either matches or goes a 10th faster than Cini, and there's been a problem for Brock Feeney, that Lightning McQueen looking machine, well off the circuit in a place where a couple people have found the dust, the gravel, and in sometimes the wall. He gets a bit of help here from Dale Carpenter as well.
Well, we've seen that Brock Feeney's been driving on the ragged edge a bit in this race and went off on his own down at turn 2 and then copped a serve at the next corner on just to further add to his woes, and unfortunately that sends Brock Feeney back to the pits for some repairs, and moving up, taking advantage of some of the drama that we've seen. Lachlan Manif, who's now just outside the top 10. Here's a car with a cool paint scheme, the Ned Whiskey entry of Matthew Woodward. We saw that he was caught up in all sorts of drama at Brands Hatch a couple of rounds ago, but he's had a bit more of a trouble-free outing so far tonight.
Yeah, indeed. Very easy to find throughout the field, and he's watching a solid battle in front of him. Turbo Brisbane car of Jonathan Blykoff. Big hit check there. Nose first into the wall. Wow. It's just so tough to go side by side through a lot of these places here. This is a kind of a repeat of some of the dramas that we saw before with Dylan Burse almost.
We're starting to get some mistakes, aren't we, creeping into the back end of this race, and also a lot more car-to-car contact. That move was never on there for Jonathan Beekoff, and that was not ever going to work, I don't think, and in the end he has found himself in the wall as well. Another victim that gets claimed by the ever-present barriers here at Oran Park.
Problem there is, Novicky was a little bit wide, maybe half a car length, 3/4 of a car length wide of the apex, but there was not a full car width for the nose of Beekoff to try and get through there, unfortunately. So he thought he saw an opportunity, but there just was not quite enough space for that move to be completed cleanly.
We're at that stage of the race now where the drivers' tyres will be starting to hurt as well, especially with the hot track conditions that we've got here at Oran Park today. So the drivers who have maybe just pushed a little bit too hard and punched their tyres a bit too much will starting to be struggles to keep the car heading in the direction that they want it to. So here's Aaron Oliver. He's moved up to 5th position just ahead of Matthew Brunt. Now, Aaron Oliver is actually in a pretty good position from a championship perspective because he's in the top 5. His main title rival in Ethan Griggolt is all the way down in 30th position. So Aaron Oliver potentially in a very good spot here to drag back a big bundle of points on Griggolt.
And like we've said, cement that lead he has of the South Australian drivers and pick up some freebies potentially as well. Another car, very well presented, very easy to spot. I do love the teams and drivers we've seen take the Excel livery, put it on the TCR. Moderately different shape, but a lot of them have transferred very, very well, including these ones of Wanzek and Ben Bargwana. Bargwana's dropped back one spot as Wanzek took a position off him. Now Wanzek's looking to line up Geordie Cini here. Seen it's tough to find room to the inside in these first opening left-handers. He's still going to try it though, not quite enough overlap, but maybe forces a bit of a mistake.
Jordan Cini ran very wide at turn 2, but the problem for Wanzek is that he'll be on the wrong side of the road when they get to the right-hander at turn 3. But look at the corner speed that Wanzek's able to carry. They'll still be side by side when they get up to turn 4. They bang doors. Cini wants to try and force the issue, and he will still be on the inside. There's a bit of contact between them, but Wanzek eventually gets the job done. So that move took a little while to get executed, but Wanzek, in the end, despite the fact that he was on the outside for 3 corners in a row, was able to get the job done. And this has actually been a pretty good recovery from Jaden Wanzek, considering he was facing the wrong direction and spinning off the circuit at turn 3 earlier on in the race. He's back up to 8th position.
Yeah, that he is, and just trying to pull clear of this battle pack that's then formed behind him. He's certainly in that battle. Let Ben Bargwana get a bit closer. Let Dylan Burse get a little bit closer as well, who's a lap down, maybe trying to grab a position, try and save some points. Oh, dramas for Aaron Oliver, who we were watching earlier. Oliver's dropped back 2 positions behind Matthew Brunt and Tommy Saunter-Chun there. Doesn't look to be too much damage, but it's put him right in front of the battle we were previously watching. It is proving very tough around Oran Park.
So Aaron Oliver just needs to cool his heels a bit here. If he's got a spotter on the radio, they need to be keeping him informed about what the situation is with Ethan Griggolt, because Aaron Oliver doesn't need to be dropping any more positions. He needs to maximise his haul of points, given that Ethan Grigolt's having such a bad race. We saw that he was under pressure from Matthew Brunt, so it could just be that he's made a bit of a mistake while he was trying to keep Brunt at bay.
Mentioned that tyre drop off, and at the moment here we're seeing drivers put in lap times that are about 5 or 6 tenths off their best from earlier in the race. So it's not been a massive drop off, but certainly some of the drivers driving a bit more aggressively, sliding it, or maybe who've had a lockup or two, might be feeling that. If you lock up the tyre, you can put too much temperature in them, then they start feeling warm, they're a bit slidier, you're more likely to then put more wear on them, more slip angle on them, and it can have a bit of a runaway effect. So keeping calm behind the wheel can be important when it comes to your tyre longevity deeper into it this race.
Easier said than done, though, isn't it? When you're embroiled in a battle with another competitor, often instincts take over. You try and push the car as hard as you can because you don't want the car behind to get past, or you could be trying to get ahead of the car in front, and you don't really tend to be thinking too much about tyre preservation. So it does take a fair bit of self-discipline to not drive any harder than you need to, and not, like you say, carry any more slip angle, not get on the throttle too hard or until the front wheels are straight on the exit of corners, and trying to brake in a straight line is the other thing that you want to do, as well as we see Hayden Jericho just out braking himself and running wide at turn 2. No damage done. Play on for Hayden Jericho, but he did drop a couple of spots out of that one.
Another great livery that's been transplanted from an Excel onto an Audi, looking very, very good. Oh, more drivers for Aaron Oliver. Wanzek gives him a bit of a tap.
So just as we were saying that this was an important race for Aaron Oliver and that he didn't need to make any mistakes, well, he's made another one, and that drops him outside of the top 10. So the potential to claw back points on Ethan Grigolt continues to diminish. And to be fair, he actually cops a bit of a tap from Jaden Wanzek there in the braking approach to turn number 2. So I think that, Wanzek was at least partially to blame for that one.
Gap at the leads also come down to about 3 tenths. Ben Smith was running away with this one. 2 laps to go as they cross the line right now. Jack Boyd is right at it, looking at potentially a race win here.
Thinking as well about what this all means from a championship perspective, Tommy Saunter-Chunas, the other driver who could benefit quite significantly here, because he's currently 3rd in the championship standings. Right now, Tommy Saunter-Chunas, the only of the top 3 drivers in the championship to be running in the top 10 in this race. So he could very well be on course to benefit quite significantly from some of the drama that struck a couple of our other contenders.
Yeah, indeed. Going to be interesting to see how it shakes out after this race. Boyd had a bit of a wiggle there that's dropped him just a couple of tenths back from Ben Smith, and boy, he doesn't look particularly stressed there, so he's going to have the white flag this time, and I think the opportunities are running out for Boyd to be able to put a move on him.
So hearing that there's probably still a couple of laps left, because there will be, because he's come across the start-finish line with about 1 minute and 25 seconds on the clock. We know that they've been lapping in around the minute 11s or thereabouts. So this will be the second and last lap that our race leader Ben Smith is on. But Jack Boyd, he's done a good job in the back end of this race, and he's been able to close right in on Ben Smith. So Jack Boyd's obviously managed his tyres pretty well, and it's only 3 tenths per second separating our first and second place drivers on this penultimate lap.
They are maybe going to catch a car or two, but you can flash the headlights on this TCR. Not that that necessarily always has an effect, but you can make it known that you're approaching. Looks like it could be the Astron Tech car of Chelsea Angelo just up the road from them. Indeed it is. She's nursing a bit of damage on the front of that car from very early in this race, so just trying to bring it home for a result in the progressive grid. Hopefully improve in race 2.
So here comes Ben Smith to start the last lap This is one of those races that's really going to mix things up in terms of the championship, with some of our big players having tough days. Some of the drivers who've had difficult starts to the season using it as an opportunity to bounce back. So just to give you an idea, none of the top 3 drivers in this race are in the top 10 in the championship. So this is certainly one that's going to mix things up at the top of the standings. A couple of laps cars that Ben Smith is potentially going to have to negotiate on the final lap. Let's hope that they apply some courtesy, knowing that the race leaders are right behind. Provided he keeps it mistake-free for this last half a lap, I think Ben Smith will be okay, but the biggest risk for him is that he could get balked by one of these slower cars heading over the dog leg, because that would possibly create an overtaking manoeuvre for Jack Boyd heading down into the 12th and final corner. Good job from that back marker just to sidestep our race leaders as they fly across the dog leg, head down into the braking zone for turn number 12. And Ben Smith, he just needs to nail the exit here, which he's done. So it's been a tough start to the season, some up and down results, but he gets his first race win of the Circuit Excel eSeries. Congratulations to Ben Smith. He's your race winner for race 1 here at Oran Park.
He had to fight for it, and it was close at the end, but he does pick up those points, and that means he's going to start from front row of the grid for race 2. He finds the handbrake in that car, so he can't really do any donuts, but he's doing the Macca's Tray Skids technique there to celebrate his victory. Still a couple battles that might need to be resolved on this final lap, though.
Chris Donnelly and Ryan Casher coming out of the last corner. They will come home in positions 15 and 16 respectively. Only a few tenths of a second separating those cars at the line.
This is Hayden Jericho, Scott Barlow, Shane Novicki, and James Simpson. Barlow's looking at Hayden Jericho here. I get the feeling like, again, if it's mistake-free, Jericho has this one in the bag. Same too for the drivers behind it. They've fought all the way to the end of the final lap.
Oh, car just casually parked in the wall on pit straight there on the final lap. And there is Ethan Grigault crashing into that car as he comes across the line in 27th position. Not a great race number 1 for our championship leader. Confirmation of your results, though. It's Ben Smith who grabs the race victory ahead of Jack Boyd, Jordan Ross 3rd, and then it's Andrew Hobby ahead of Matthew Brunt, Tommy Saunton joined in 6th, Jaden Wanzek, good recovery after some early problems, finished in 7th position ahead of Jordan Sinney, Ben Bargwana, and Dale Carpenter completing the top 10.
From 11th place, Aaron Oliver, who was looking pretty well placed until maybe the last third or so of the race, but he still gets across the line in 11th, ahead of Lee Harrison and Lachlan Manif, Sam Christensen, Ryan Casher. We saw Chris Donnelly, Harry Inwood, Matthew Woodward in the Ned car that you can always find no matter where you're looking, and Scott Stevenson and Mitchell McGarry rounding out the 20.
Scott Harris finishes up in position 21, back to Ryan Bell, 22nd. Hayden Jericho, Scott Barlow, Shane Nowich, back to James Simpson. But the big news, our championship leader, Ethan Grigault, in 27th position, ahead of Chelsea Angelo in 28th, Jason Beggs in 29th, Dylan Burse, another one of our front runners, finishing way down the order in 30th position.
Yeah, and then we're looking at retirements here. We saw the incident for Jonathan Bykoff, and he finishes 31st. Riley Buick, we also saw in 32nd. Dramas for him. Darren Whittington, then 33rd. Textar McCoy, 3 laps down in 34th. Brock Feeney, 9 laps down. I believe that one's a retirement. And only 3 laps completed for Liam Hydes, unfortunately.
So no points for Brock Feeney or for Textar McCoy, and they were both in the top 10 in the championship coming into this round as well. So again, some of our championship frontrunners having pretty tough results in race number 1. What that sets us up for, though, some drivers to be charging their way through the field in race 2, which is going to make it very exciting for us to watch and to commentate.
Yes, certainly. Those names that we were just talking about that we thought maybe a better result was possible for them. Well, where they finished in race one's where they start in race two. So definitely keep an eye on what Ethan Griggolt does from 27th on the grid in a sprint race around the go-kart track, the GOAT track as well of Oran Park.
So that completes all of the action from race number 1 for round 4 of the Circuit Excel eSeries here at Oran Park. Race 2 not far away. We're going to go for a break here on SimSpeed TV. Plenty more Excel action coming your way very shortly.
Hey everyone, my name is Matt and I'm the creator of the Nugget Project, and I'm currently racing in the South Australian Circuit Excel eSeries. So I'm relatively new to the Excel racing world. When I started building my car, I had a look online and there was a bit of information about building these cars, but mainly regulations. There was no videos on sort of how-tos, and I was bumbling my way through it, so I thought, screw it, I will film it and everyone can learn from my success and my mistakes. And that's how the Nugget Project was born. It was a bit of a joke at the start, and now we're up around, I don't know how many, we've got a couple of thousand followers and we've got a lot of views, and it's going pretty well. So now I'm delving into iRacing with a bunch of the other, well, pretty much every racer in the world I think has jumped to iRacing. I'm currently very much at the back of the pack and having a blast back there. There are some extremely talented drivers in this class, which is great because it makes me lift my game. But right now I'm starting at the back and I'm finding myself sort of midfield. Ever since COVID hit, obviously none of us can get out on the racetrack. And I think it's taken its toll on a lot of people sort of staying inside. So this idea from Maddie and a few of the other boys to get this class going and get a sort of a fixed Saturday night race is a really cool idea. Right now I'm stuck in my house. It's a great house, but I'm stuck in the house. I've got a 2-week-old baby girl who's awesome. But it's nice to have those few hours escape once a week to jump on the sim and get involved. All of us seem to have a bit of trouble with formation laps. Which is frustrating at times, but we're getting better, and I think everyone's new to this, and it's very hard to be in a car where you don't have a lot of spatial awareness and don't have a lot of monitors. Well, I don't, and a lot of people don't. Alrighty, let me show you around my racing sim. So you've heard from a few of the other drivers who are awesome, and they've got these wicked rigs with full wraparound screens and all that sort of stuff. Mine's pretty much on the other end of the scale. I built this sim a few years back for just Xbox, Forza, project cars, things like that. It's just a wooden frame, and I bolted my basic Logitech G920 in there with the pedals and the shifter. And then, as I seem to do, if anybody's watched my channel, they'll know I went a bit overboard, and I actually put the old interior for my Toyota Sora on this and then sprayed it all black. So this interior was pretty brown and I got a genuine black interior for it, so I put that in, and this is the old interior. I cut it up and somehow made it fit. And then one weekend I thought, you know, it'd be cool, a sequential shifter. So I adapted this this shifter, which is actually an eBay handbrake for a Civic. So I pulled the hydraulics out of it, and put in some micro switches and then pulled apart my steering wheel and wired them in, and I've now got a sequential shifter, which is actually handy because my downshift paddle on the wheel doesn't work anymore, so I have to use this, and it's a little more genuine for the Audi TCR anyway. Also, we've got, you can see the little stereo amplifier there. That's just an eBay one, and I'm running a bass thumper in the seat, which is basically just the thumper out of a subwoofer with no cone, bolted to the seat, and when you go over ripple strips or hit another car or change gears, you get that thump to the seat, which is really cool. The computer I'm running is from our mate Ryan, who you would have seen on a bunch of Nugget Project videos if you watch. Ryan Lee, who's a sim racer, and he upgraded to some fancy pants system, and he had that sitting in his lounge room, and he goes, hey, do you want this? So I bought it off him, and now I've got myself a racing sim. None of this is helping me get near the front of the pack, but it's a nice place to be. I like it. Maybe one day I'll save up for some better pedals that actually have some feel, but for the time being, it's doing the trick. Due to all the wood and the interior on this thing, I think it actually weighs more than my XL. It is so heavy, and I don't even want to know what it's doing to the carpet under this. So there we go, gang. This is my little COVID escape, my little fortress of solitude. It's nice to get on a couple of nights a week and battle with you guys and girls and have a bit of fun. So I'll see you on the track as you come booting past. The little blue flash you went past, that's me. Give me a wave. We'll see you on track.
off heading into the pit lane. Simon Bright. Whoa, no. Yeah, it was. It was
Oh no! Oh no! What's going on
No
here?
way!
Caution is out.
Simon Bryant got knocked into the pit lane into Dylan Freckleton. No way! That did not just happen.
Across the line, and we'll look back to Caleb Hides and Wayne Burke. The battle for fourth, into the chicane, a big dive from Burke, he throws it over the curb. They both cut the track, they both got to slow down. That is the strangest photo finish you'll ever see.
I think he's got the speed for it. There it is on screen. 26 miles an hour. Yeah, he's gonna coast to a halt. He won't. He's gonna need.
You've seen some camaraderie here before, and no.
Nope. No, no. Oh, Sean. Oh, all right. There's a lonely car stopped feet from the line. We're gonna save him more embarrassment, and we'll go to break here. Officially it's 0, and Driscoll gets tipped! That's Matthew Thunhorst getting into him, and it's going to turn around a bunch of cars as up at the front. It's going to be Christian Challenger taking the win. Who is going to be second? It is an absolute mess! To the line, I don't even know! 5 wide! Schmeier! Beltrami in third! That was perhaps the most ridiculous finish to an oval race I think I've ever seen.
Welcome back to SimSpeed TV, where you are watching round number 4 of the Circuit Excel eSeries at Oran Park Raceway. Lachlan Mansell along with David Haynes in the commentary box this evening, talking you through all of the action. We had our first 30-minute race not that long ago. We're gearing up for race number 2, which will commence very shortly. Grid positions will be determined based on the finishing results for race number 1. And that means, David, we've got some pretty big names starting a long way down the order.
Yeah, indeed, Lockie. The guys who had a good race in race 1 are going to be very pleased with themselves, starting well on the grid in race 2. But our points leader going into this round, Ethan Grigg-Galt, is going to have to start out of 27th on a track that's pretty narrowed, has some difficult braking zones, and I think your best overtaking opportunity into turn 1 and 2 is kind of made more difficult by the curved braking zone there. So yet it's difficult on a good day to work your way up through the field, lest starting 27th in a 30-minute sprint race. So we'll see if he can keep it clean, work his way back up, because a consistent result here would still keep Ethan Grigg-Galt in a very good position.
The saving grace for Ethan Grigg-Galt was that a couple of his main championship rivals had results that were not that flash either, including Aaron Oliver, who finished outside the top 10 after a couple of late incidents. We saw that Techstar McCoy finished well down the order as well. In fact, the only one of the top 3 drivers in the championships finished in the top 10 in that race was Tommy Sorter-Chun, who finished in 6th position. So he could be the one well placed to make up some ground in terms of the championship situation. But Ben Smith, the man who is carrying our webcam tonight, he was our race 1 winner. He'll start this second race from pole position.
Yeah, warm-up underway right now before race 2, and Ben Smith has upgraded the safety equipment since race 1 when we saw him, and he's got the helmet on to protect his lid for race 2 in case he has another bit of contact out there, and also he's got the neck support, very, very important piece of safety equipment. So he's just warming up right now out there, getting ready for race 2, which is a couple of minutes away. I'm taking a look at the weather conditions, because of course we mentioned a 52 degrees Celsius track in race 1. Doesn't look like we've had much change to the weather at all for race 2. So if they learnt something about the tyre life or the tyre warm-up in race 1, it's going to carry over into race 2.
I noticed there as well that Ben Smith was wearing his hands device, and I think somebody forgot to tell Ben, unfortunately, that for the hands device to be effective, you have to have a harness over it as well. So maybe that's another bit of kit that he needs. But just like some racing drivers choose to wear their race suits while they're doing sim racing, because you never know when your bedroom's going to catch on fire, equally you just never know when there might be a massive impact that could potentially cause you a head injury while you're sitting there at the wheel of your simulator. So good to see that Ben Smith's gone for the safety first approach.
Got the visor down too as well now, so that's great. If anything gets into the cabin or ends up there, he's fully protected his eyes there with the visor down. Might be a bit too much tint on that visor for the conditions, but you cannot be too careful. That's Lockie Manif there, who's having some dramas in the warm-up, pushing the limits in practice. Hopefully he can have a clean race in race 2. Race 1 was a struggle for him.
Well, speaking of Lachlan Manif, who brought us our Oran Park track description earlier on, he messaged me just before the start of this session, and he said that he'll be coming out swinging in race number 2, so watch out for Lockie Manif. Big charge up through the field from the Legera Sim Racing Game of Gear entry.
Yeah, indeed. So the format's been interesting tonight. We had 4 groups of qualifying, then our top 35 qualifying times were put into what we have called the main group, who have progressed from race 1 towards this race 2 here. There were some drivers from the, I guess, the other racing group that might have been promoted on race 1 results into this main group in the fight for championship points. Are you seeing any that have made that progression?
Hard to say at the moment, because I don't actually have any vision. I think we might just have a slight technical issue at the back end, which our producer Jay Kennedy will no doubt be working to resolve.
I can tell you something from what I can see out the window here, is that in this warm-up session so far, Ethan Grigg-Galt It's just put in a best time of a 10.5. That is a full 0.6 of a second clear of everyone else. In the warm-up, Ethan Grigault has come out swinging, and if he's got that kind of pace again in the race, I have to say 30 minutes, 25 or 26 laps or so around here, I reckon Ethan Grigault could go from 27th into the top 5.
The key thing for him is going to be staying out of trouble early in the race and then picking off positions one at a time. If he goes too hard too early, then he risks getting caught up in drama. Let's have a look at our grid positions for this race. Ben Smith on pole position, Jack Boyd out of second spot, then it's Jordan Ross and Andrew Hobby on the second row. Matthew Brunt in position 5 ahead of Frank Hodak in 6th position. Jaden Wanzek in 7th position ahead of Paul Sinney in 8th position. Ben Bargwana in 9th. Dale Carpenter in 10th. I think you'll find it's actually Tommy Sorted-Chun who will be starting there out of grid position number 6 based on the finishing positions of the previous race.
Yeah, we look overleaf at Aaron Oliver in 11th. Definitely had plenty of pace in his Penrite car for a top 10, but could only manage 11th. And Lee Harrison in 12th. Lachlan Manif going to come out swinging from 13th, so we've heard. Sam Christensen in 14th. Ryan Casher in 15th. Chris Donnelly in 16th, with Harry Inwood in 17th. Matthew Woodward in 18th, and Scott Stevenson 19th. Mitchell McGarry 20th, as they're rolling behind the pace car right now.
Getting ready for the rolling start. We'll take you through the rest of the grid. Watch out for Ethan Grigault starting out of 27th position. Dylan Burse out of 30th will be one to watch as well. We know he's got plenty of pace. And then for a bit further back in the pack, Techstar McCoy has been one of our championship front runners as well. But underway for race 2, round number 4 of the Circuit Excel eSeries here at Oran Park. Great start from our race 1 winner, Ben Smith. They are running 3 and 4 wide down into turn 2. Contact as Ross gets into the back of the Flight Centre car, which goes skating off through the gravel. We've got more contact as well, with Lachlan Manif getting into the side of a car as well. And that is Jordan Ross, who has gone off the road at turn number 2. Oh, we've got pile up here. Massive damage to several cars, a few of them facing the wrong way. And the big question for me is what has happened to Ethan Grigault. In fact, I think you'll find that Jordan Ross might have got out of that one. That might have been the Jordan Ross teammate, as Ethan Grigault is going to be off the road, coming off the bridge. He's almost gone all the way back up to turn number 2. He's gone so far off the track there, Ethan Grigault.
He's looking for that figure 8 layout, but thankfully he's avoided any walls. We look further up the front here. Aaron Oliver taking the shortcut. That's not going to work for him. He was looking for 6th place. Now he is well off the circuit. Careful rejoining across that bump there. It is mayhem for the first lap here. Benjamin Smith still has the lead. Jordan Ross is with him, same too for Jack Boyd, but those three have broken away from the rest of the field, where Ben Bargwana has grabbed 4th spot, up 5 through the chaos of that race start. On screen here, your top 3 broken away. As I say, that Wanzek puts a move on Bargwana and he drops a couple more spots. It has been an eventful lap 1.
So it was Matthew Brunt who was actually off the road there at turn number 2 on the opening lap. So Matthew Brunt and also Andrew Hobby coming to grief. Let's pick up a few replays just to tell a bit more of the story about what happened. You can see that they're running 3 and 4 wide. The car that is ostensibly Frank Hodak, but that we believe is actually Tommy Sorted-Chun, was one of the cars that was involved in that incident. And there is the Matthew Brunt car, other cars getting turned around as well, making heavy contact with each other and with the walls. Absolute chaos and a lot of damage being sustained for a lot of race cars underneath the Oran Park Bridge.
You'd see a couple wheels coming off the wagon, and Ethan Grigault is a retirement now. So this has been a round to forget for the points leader. We'll see what change that makes to the standings potentially. But the racing continues for everyone else, and it is mighty close here. Astron Tech car would be Chelsea Angelo going door to door into one. Here is that crossover back underneath that is not quite going to work for Hayden Jericho there. So Angelo was first car off the lead lap in race 1. It's now gained 15 positions trying to work back through the field in race 2. There are a few cars well out of the order that we would have typically expected because of this progressive grid from race 1 to race 2.
So you're right, and it's a bit of a shame, isn't it, that Ethan Grigolt has retired from the race. Not quite sure what triggered that retirement. We saw that he was off the circuit, coming off the bridge on the opening lap, but clearly he's had another incident and sustained some damage, which has ended his day altogether. So like you say, it's been a night's forget for Ethan Grigolt, and one that's going to drop him right back into the clutches of his pursuers in terms of the championship. One of those pursuers is Aaron Oliver, who's made up some progress in the first couple of laps. He's back up into the top 10, he's in 8th position, and he's chasing down Harry Inwood.
That he certainly is. We saw a scruffy start for Oliver, and he is lightning on the brakes there, closing in car length upon car length. Couldn't find a way to get past Harry Inwood there. What about a dive in the twistier bits here? Not quite close enough, but if he just keeps working at it, he might find a way through it. Side by side, second and third. Jordan Ross is trying to, Jack Boyd's trying to put the move on Jordan Ross as they go side by side up here. This is helping Ben Smith try and break away. Jordan Ross sideways.
Contact, and it's Jordan Ross that gets turned around. Contact with Jack Boyd, who gets speared off the racetrack at turn 7 does Jordan Ross. He gets back on. He only dropped a couple of positions out of that one because the cars were fairly spread out. But Jack Boyd, who was second in race 1 behind Ben Smith, back up to second position in race 2. So this actually started a couple of corners back. They were side by side coming off the bridge. And I'll tell you what, I don't think that Jack Boyd was far enough up the inside for that to be a clean move.
Yeah, we've seen a little bit of contact there on the track. Ross was all of the way clear, tries to turn in. Boyd's tried to lunge down the inside there, and a bit of contact has indeed been made. Car-to-car contact, typically not as bad as the contact against the wall. So at the moment, we'll see if Jordan Ross gets back up to speed, but he's holding on to 4th. Check back in with Aaron Oliver, who has got past Harry Inwood. He's now trying to size up Ryan Casher, who is doing a pretty decent job of hanging with Lachlan Maneath.
So Lachlan Maneath, he said that he was going to be on the charge in this race. Well, that's certainly proven to be the case because Lachlan Maneath has moved up into the top 5, albeit sporting a bit of damage to the front of the Gamer Gear Direct Legera Sim Racing Audi RS3. And Aaron Oliver
through on Casher.
Yep, so Aaron Oliver makes a spot and moves up into 6th position as well.
Take a look at the replay of that one. Again, just crisscross on the exit. Just enough overlap at the inside there, and Ryan Casher sensibly, I have to say, gives enough room there. Aaron Oliver cleanly completes the pass, and these guys carry on. Chelsea Angelo and Woodward.
Yep. So this is a bit further back. This is 14th and 15th position. Woodward on the outside, Angelo on the inside, Andrew Hobby tucking in behind.
And Oliver off the circuit. Saw it in the background there. Aaron Oliver off. He just made some great moves up through the field, and it's all gone away. Motor simulation replay will tell us what happened there. Was he helped from behind, or was he just too ambitious by himself? There was no one especially close at that point in time when he goes to turn in here. Too ambitious, a little bit of grass maybe. He's locked it up, and it's just gone on. Oh, no, there was a tap there.
So he was a bit deep under brakes into turn 2 and he was running wide, but the car behind obviously made a mistake as well. Here we go. This replay will tell a better story. So you can see that Oliver was already going to run out of road, but then he's just been centre punched by another car, and that's actually done a fair bit of damage to Aaron Oliver's car. So on a night where he might have been very well placed to capitalise on the problem. Oh, well, there we go. So it was actually contact between the two cars behind. That unsettled Ryan Casher, so he couldn't get pulled up. And that's the reason that he slammed into the side of Aaron Oliver's car. But on a night where Aaron Oliver could have made up a lot of ground on Ethan Grigolt in the championship, he's run into his own problems as well.
Yeah, indeed. I think they call that a snooker move, that one there. Casher, a bit of a passenger when he made the contact. Wheel off the wagon for Chelsea Angelo. I assure you that car got repaired between race 1 and race 2, and It's got a bit of a bump on the front as well. This has been one of the danger zones in the first sector of the lap here. Angelo and Kasha there. They rub a little bit. We're looking for Dylan Burst trying to force the way down the inside. Might have distracted Angelo, who gets in too deep. Hip check against Ryan Kasha.
Poor Ryan Kasha, he has been a punching bag in the last couple of laps. He has just been absolutely belted from pillar to post. And neither one of those incidents were really his fault, so you have to feel a bit for him, unfortunately. How about Darren Whittington? What a drive this has been from him. He started this race out of 33rd position on the grid. We're not even a third of the way into this race, and he's already up into 7th position.
And he's flying along too. There's only 4 drivers out there in the 1 minute 10s. That's your top 3 and Darren Whittington. So he's got the pace, even working through some of the traffic. So he's clearly closed up on Harry Inwood in 6th. There is no one a bigger mover than Darren Whittington right now. Clearly dodged some lap 1 carnage and then has had the pace to back it up since then.
It's going to be one of those rounds where just staying out of trouble and just keeping your nose clean is an achievement, and he's going to yield you plenty of points at the end of the night. There's just been that much drama and that much chaos, a lot of which has involved some of our main championship protagonists, that if you can keep it on the black stuff, you've actually done pretty well for yourself.
Ooh, big sideways stuff there.
Lockie Manif backing it into turn 2. And Hank's coming under pressure now. Lachlan Manif from Harry Inwood. Then we go back to the 3-way battle that's happening. That also involves Darren Whittington and Ben Bargwana. In fact, that other car that's just up the road ahead of that trio, that's actually a lap down car. So Inwood trying to hold off the hard-charging Whittington. Bargwana up inside the top 10 once again as well. Bargwana, another driver who's going to bank some healthy points out of this round. He was on the podium in the previous round at Phillip Island, and where a lot of the other drivers have been involved in incidents tonight, he's kept his nose clean so far.
Menacing stuff from Whittington here now, looking for the way past inside to the final corner. He's much later on the brakes. If he can get that stopped, turned, and get a good drive out of the corner, that'll be position done. So that's actually a pretty well executed move from Darren Whittington there to grab 6th place. Now a measly 27 positions gained in about 12 minutes for Darren Whittington.
Not bad, and like you say, his lap speed's been pretty good, and now he's actually got some clear track to fully exploit the performance of his Audi RS3 TCR car. So next driver on his hit list will be Lachlan Manif, who's just up the road, but there are a couple of laps cars in between, including the car of Jonathan Beekoff.
Some more drivers on the charge in these groups here, seeing Aaron Oliver trying to fight against maybe the equally wounded car of Chelsea Angelo there. I think Oliver's pulled that move off, and in front of them, some charging drivers. Dylan Burst started out of 30th, is now in 11th, so another driver making up a lot of spots.
I still haven't quite got to the bottom of the situation with Tommy Sorter-Chun from this race either, because we saw that he finished 6th in race 1, so by all rights he should have been starting 6th on the grid for this race. We saw that it was actually Frank Hodak who started 6th, so unless there's been some chopping and changing with iRacing accounts, not quite sure what the story is there, but Frank Hodak currently scored all the way down in 30th position according to timing, so if indeed it is Sorter-Chun who's driving that car, not shaping up to be a particularly great night for him either. So all 3 of our top 3 championship drivers have had at least one rough race tonight, 2 in the case of our leader, Ethan Grigolt.
Replay of Harry Inwood, who was in, I think, 6th or 7th there, just in front of Ben Bargwana. He's dropped down a whole load of spots, and this replay is going to tell us why. Car in front is bike off. It was a lap down, distracts Inwood, who gets a bit of grass. You can't stop the car or turn the car without those tyres on the bitumen, and unfortunately, that's a bit too much damage for Harry Inwood, who's having a strong run. It's promoted people like Ben Bargwana up a little bit higher.
And this is a bit like what we saw in the previous race with Jack Boyd hunting down Ben Smith in what is the battle for the lead. Only on this occasion, Jack Boyd is coming at Ben Smith a little bit earlier on. We saw that he didn't really close in on Ben Smith until right near the end of race 1. He's making his presence felt on the back of Ben Smith a bit earlier this time around. 0.7 of a second, the margin between first and second, and Jack Boyd was 0.6 of a second quicker than Ben Smith on the previous lap.
Boyd looks super precise. He's putting his wheels right against the curbs and right towards the white lines all around the circuit, but still always keeping it on the grippy stuff. So you see he just uses a little bit more of the track here and there, just has a great feel for where he's placing the outside corners of the car. I think that is the secret to some of the speed that Boyd has gotten. If he's taking some slightly wider lines, some slightly more swooping corners here, that might also be helping with the tyre longevity, might be why he finds a little bit more pace later on to come at Ben Smith.
He's showing a very good turn of speed at the moment, Jack Boyd. Once again, he was quicker that time around by 0.3 of a second. Jaden Wanzek and Jordan Ross still lapping pretty consistently as well. Wanzek a little bit slower that time around. Jordan Ross still lapping in the minute 10 bracket as well, as he looks to recover from that earlier incident where he got turned around by Jack Boyd at turn 7. But Jack Boyd definitely the driver who looks to have the supremacy in terms of car speed at the moment. And the margin has come down again. It's now only half a second separating first and second on the racetrack.
And Benjamin Smith, our driver, in the lead there, still wearing the helmet, but he's decided to crack the visor for a little bit more visibility. And certainly that might be a necessity right now. He can't leave anything on the table in this battle against Jack Boyd. And of course, as you can see on the timing tower, underneath 3.5 seconds, our top 4 drivers. So realistically, Boyd can't afford to fight this one too hard. Otherwise, these two don't have to drop too far back in time, and Wanzek and Ross will be right in it as well. It's still very, very close.
Here's the battles happening a bit further back. Dylan Burse, he's another one who's had a pretty good drive up through the field as well. After getting caught up in some tangles in race 1, he had to start well down the order in race 2, but he's worked his way up into the top 10 as well. So some solid performances from some drivers who had to start a little bit further back. Standout is still Darren Whittington, who grabs another spot at turn 2, making the move through on Lachlan Manif to get himself up into the top 5. This has been a storming drive from Darren Whittington, who started this race from 33rd position on the grid.
Yeah, perfectly timed move there against Manif. Maybe the little bit of extra something Lachlan Manif needs to properly come out swinging is to put that window banner on correctly. That's clearly the couple tenths of a second that he is missing. And speaking of couple tenths of a second, that's all that separates first and second right now, where Jack Boyd continues to just chip away at Benjamin Smith in the lead. And unlike race 1, he's got just a little bit more time to try and force a mistake, try and size up his opponent for the lead of the race here.
So this is going to be a test of Ben Smith's composure. We saw that he had to defend for a few laps in race 1, but this time around he's going to have to defend for well over 10 minutes. So this will really test Ben Smith's resolve if he can keep Jack Boyd at bay. They'll go side by side, a bit of an overlap there. I thought that might have resulted in contact because it looks like Ben Smith was moving back across to the racing line almost as they headed into a braking zone, which can be a pretty risky thing to do. Thankfully, there wasn't contact between those two cars then, but Ben Smith under all sorts of pressure, and he's going to have to withstand that pressure for the next 12.5 minutes if he wants to pick up his second race win of the evening.
Next car up the road that these two are going to catch is Jordan Sinney, who's not having as good of a time as last race. Dale Carpenter gets a bit of the icky stuff on the tyres there, losing out a spot or two right before the bridge.
But at Oran Park, it gets very dusty in the infield as well, so if you're dropping wheels off the road and picking up dust and dirt on your tyres, it will affect the level of grip that you have for the next few corners. And at least Aaron Oliver's moved back up to 11th as well, so good to say that the Penrite cars on the comeback trail after that excursion that he had down at turn number 2 where he got clouted by one of the other cars.
Wound the tapes back here on Lachlan Maneath, and he gets all four off the track there. Has a bit of a shortcut in the dog leg there, and finds a bump in the outfield. That is, I was hoping he'd be able to catch that one rallycross style, but he wasn't, and it puts more damage on the right-hand side of the car for Lachlan Maneath.
He actually did pretty well to recover from that one as well as he did. I think he only lost one position out of that one, which was in a spot to Ben Bargwanna, who was able to get through and up into 6th position. So just Ben Bargwanna demonstrating the point that I made earlier on, where his race performances are always better than his qualifying performances. He's up into 6th position now, Ben Bargwanna, on for a very solid haul of points. He's potentially going to leave this round inside the top 3 in the championship based on the woes that have afflicted some of our other championship frontrunners. Battle for the lead continues. Under 11 minutes to go, and still less than half a second separating Ben Smith and Jack Boyd.
Yeah, Boyd still not finding any opportunity. Was very, very close in turn 1 there. In fact, I saw a little tap of the brake lights come on so that he didn't get into the back of Ben Smith right before the braking zone. But still, he just then couldn't find a way maybe to the inside of turn 2 or to force a mistake. Actually been caught slightly by Wanzek and Ross behind, and there's been an issue for Techstar McCoy as well.
He's another driver who's had a shocker tonight, Techstar McCoy. And Dale Carpenter, who we saw off the road a bit earlier on. Has there been contacts between these two drivers at turn 1? Yes, there certainly has, and they're both off at high speed and into the tyre wall. And that'll send both of those cars back to pit lane for some repairs.
Carpenter was trying to put Techstar McCoy a lap down there. It's come in very, very hot, and a bit of contact made. Speaking of coming in very, very hot, Ben Smith misses the apex at turn 2, but still manages to gather it up with a good exit. So even when he makes a little mistake, it's just not a big enough mistake from Benjamin Smith for Boyd to make inroads.
And the other thing that's happened is that the 3rd and 4th position cars have swapped places. So Jordan Ross has got ahead of Jaden Wanzek. So Ross back up inside the top 3. And with some of the lap times that he's been cranking out, particularly if these top 2 continue battling, Jordan Ross will soon be right up with them to make it a 3-way contest for the lead.
Well, yes, certainly. 4th place now, only 2.8 seconds off the lead. When I called it out earlier, it was 3.5 seconds. So these top 2 are not getting away. Lap times have dropped off a little bit for Ben Smith. Maybe he's working those tyres a little bit harder. We'll see what happens, but again, this is the one place on the circuit where the slipstream means something. Boyd gets close, but right at the braking zone as it narrows to one line through there. He can't find a way through there. Hardly catching Jordan Sinney in front as well. Here's a look from Boyd.
Oh, here we go. Goes for the big send up the inside into turn 3. Can he get it stopped? They'll go side by side on the exit, but I reckon that Boyd might have just managed to make the move stick. And he does. He swings across at turn number 4. So a new race leader. But Ben Smith, he wants to fight back. Jack Boyd closes the door coming off the bridge. Nicely done there from Jack Boyd. The door was only just ajar, but Jack Boyd sensed the opportunity, went for it, and he was able to make it work. Nice job.
Good move, puts Jack Boyd into the lead. Also lets Jordan Ross and Jaden Wanzek get a little bit closer. They're not quite close enough to strike just yet. We'll see if Boyd can be as unflappable in the lead as Ben Smith was for most of this race. See if Boyd can start to pull away. He's pulled a couple car lengths since then, and I think this is going to let Jordan Ross join the party. Oh, this is how the visor's down now. That's where he lost focus. Serious stuff from Ben Smith. Jordan Ross faster than our top two on that last lap, though, and you can see he's right in picture now. Only needs a little bit to be within 1 second of the lead. He's only a couple of tenths behind Ben Smith. So I see this as a three-way fight for the lead now. Wanzek, unfortunately, not quite able to stick with Jordan Ross, who has found pace at this stage in the race.
And just having a look at the lap times, and yes, indeed, Jordan Ross, the fastest of our top three drivers. Ben Smith's times have dropped off quite considerably. He was back down to a minute 12.2 last time around, so it could be that Ben Smith, in having to work very hard to defend from Jack Boyd for so many laps, might have just taken a bit too much out of his tyres.
Still staying just half a second behind Boyd at the minute. Aaron Oliver, who is meat in a sandwich here, trying to put the move on Mitchell McGarry. He's got Matthew Woodward right behind. Oh, wide goes McGarry, and Aaron Oliver is going to say thank you. He's got ninth place.
So again, Aaron Oliver, one of our main championship front runners, every position that he can gain will be very valuable in terms of the championship picture. Good to see Matthew Woodward having a good run in the Ned Whiskey car as well. This has been one of the more competitive outings that we've seen from him so far. He's just outside the top 10 at the moment, running in 11th position behind Mitchell McGarry there in the LJ Hooker entry.
Yep, indeed. Could sense Woodward might be able to line up an overtake here. He's definitely a bit more precise to the apex coming off the bridge. He's going to have a look here. This has not ended well looking down the inside there for everyone we've seen so far, and I think he just backs out of it, which was the safe thing to do, but cost him a little bit of time. It's going to help Aaron Oliver get away from these two. We've seen how easy it is to just go wide, put one tyre on the grass. Ben Smith's around. He's made contact with Jack Boyd. My goodness, I've just got my eyes on this one as it's happened. Jordan Ross is through into the lead. Jack Boyd, Benjamin Smith, and Jaden Wanzek now fighting. Smith's on the outside of Wanzek, and they might rub a little bit.
Wanzek looking up the inside of Ben Smith into turn 4. They make more contact as Wanzek wants to force the issue. It'll be interesting to go back and have a look at what's happened there. So, obviously, Jack Boyd was leading. Ben Smith had managed to stay fairly close to him in the battle for the lead. We go to the Motum simulation replay. Oh, Ben Smith's got it wrong. He's got the wheels out into the grass in the braking zone at turn 2. He hasn't been able to get the car stopped, and he's made contact with the back of Jack Boyd. So that changes everything in terms of the fight among the leaders. And Jordan Ross, who was just sitting back there in third position, gets gifted 2 spots.
Gee, if I was Jack Boyd, I'd feel a little dirty about that one, but Jordan Ross has seized with 2 hands every opportunity that's given to him. He's now trying to build out 2 seconds of a gap. Here is Manif and McGarry and Woodward. My goodness, a close scrap there. There is 5 cars in a battle for 7th place right now. Lee Harrison loses 1 more spot to Mitchell McGarry here, who is door-to-door with heading down towards 1 and 2.
So something's happened with Lachlan Monet for him to fall back into that position, because he was a fair way ahead of those drivers a lap or so ago. So Manif
5 seconds off the pace on his last lap there for Manif. You can see that there. His best is in the 111s. The last was a 118. That does not suggest a lap where he kept all 4 on the paved stuff.
Lee Harrison getting into the side of Mitchell McGarry as well, and both of those cars running wide at turn 3, but Lachlan Manif, another driver who's battling just to get to the end of this race. There's Chelsea Angelo. She's catching up to this battle as well. She's in 12th position at this stage. But coming back to that incident among the leaders, which saw Jordan Ross go through the lead. If you cast your mind back to earlier in the race, you'll remember that he got turned around by Jack Boyd at turn number 7. So I think it might be a bit of a case of karma there. Jack Boyd has copped a hit from another competitor, and Jordan Ross has been able to take advantage to pick up the position.
Look at McGarry again, and Chelsea Angelo. You can see from this camera angle, Angelo might be just missing a little bit of straight line speed with the aerodynamic damage on the front, and front split is very important. Manif is going rallycross once again and might be missing his rear spoiler on that car as well. So it's is this the kind of swinging Lachlan Manif thought he was going to come out with in this race? Correct myself, he does still have the rear wing on that, but the car hasn't gotten any prettier since last we looked.
He's obviously battling with some sort of issue there, Lachlan Manif. We catch the tail end of him going backwards off the road at turn number 2. I'd say that the tyres on that car will be absolutely shot. And he has fallen all the way back down to 13th position as Lachlan Manif in behind Dylan Burse at this stage. We're on our second to last lap. Jordan Ross with a margin of 2 seconds over Jack Boyd. Jaden Wanzek in third spot ahead of Ben Smith. The next car behind is Techstar McCoy, but take him out of the picture because he's a lap down. It's actually quite a sizable gap between Ben Smith back to Darren Whittington, who is in 5th position at this stage.
This time a week ago, Jordan Ross was leading the race and hoped he was going to be able to seal it, but couldn't on the final lap. Wishing him a little bit more luck this time around. He is in the prime position.
You would hope so anyway, wouldn't you? It would be heartbreaking to lose 2 weeks in a row with dramas on the final lap of the race, that's for sure. He does have a couple of lapped cars that he'll have to work his way around on the last lap of this race, Jordan Ross, but great drive. It's been really, really solid and consistent lap times. And even after that incident with Jack Boyd at turn number 7 early in the race where he got turned around, he was able to recover fairly quickly from that one, and he was able to maintain his composure. He hasn't overdriven the car to try and make up for the lost time. He's just steadily worked his way forward, and he's got himself into position number 1 when it counts most of all.
Final spot in the top 10's also under pressure. Chelsea Angelo still trying to keep Mitchell McGarry close, trying to force a mistake there. As we see, they're going to start the final lap. And once again, I think Angelo's a bit quicker through the twisty middle sector of the race, but the little rearrangement to the front of that Audi not helping where it's needed most in a straight line here. Losing out a couple car lengths there, that's going to make it so difficult to make a move, even if you're quicker through the twisties.
Yeah, she's going to have to push very hard across the back of the circuit to try and get close enough for potentially a last corner move. But here comes Jordan Ross, heartbreakingly denied a victory at Phillip Island a week ago, but he's going to make up for it tonight at Oran Park. It is Jordan Ross who comes through to claim the win in race number 2 for round 4 of the Shannon's Insurance Circuit XL eSeries at Oran Park. Jack Boyd finishes up in 2nd spot. Jaden Wanzek, good round for him, making up for the tough start that he's had to the season. And he finishes up inside the top 3 to grab some very valuable points as well.
Whittington crossed the line in 5th from 33rd to 5th place in a 30-minute sprint race. That is a mega effort. Aaron Oliver is going to pick up 7th place, which he might not be entirely thrilled about in other circumstances, but it is still going to extend the points that he pulls out of Ethan Grigg-Galt.
Yeah, this round's definitely going to shake up the championship. There's no doubt about that, with the likes of Ethan Grigg-Galt and Tommy Sorter-Chud both involved in dramas, and the likes of Ben Bargwana and Aaron Oliver able to bank plenty of solid points out of the night. Yeah, it's definitely going to shake things up in terms of our series standings, that's for sure. We'll let Matthew and Lisa and the rest of the Excel South Australia crew do all of the number crunching and come up with the updated championship points very shortly. What we can confirm for you tonight, though, are our race 2 results, and it's Jordan Ross who takes victory by 2.2 seconds ahead of Jack Boyd. Back to Jaden Wanzek in 3rd spot, Ben Smith 4th, then Darren Whittington, Ben Bargwana, Aaron Oliver, Matthew Woodward, Lee Harrison, Mitchell McGarry completing the top 10.
We look over Leaf and see Chelsea Angelo in 11th, who just couldn't work her way into the top 10, but still did well in this race, gaining 17 positions. I think the same can be said for Dylan Burse in 12th, who gained 18 spots. Lachlan Manif, we saw right at the end there, was not massively pleased with how he ended up, but he got 13th place, which is where he started, just ahead of Chris Donnelly's, where he finished. Then Ryan Casher in 15th, Matthew Brunt there in 16th place. Goes to James Simpson in 17th, Hayden Jericho in 18th, Ryan Bell 19th, and Riley Book in 20th.
Back then to Jonathan Bykoff in 21st position, Andrew Hobby in 22nd spot ahead of Jordan Sinney, Jason Beggs back to Frank Hodak, Liam Hines, Textar McCoy, Dale Carpenter, Shane Nowich and Sam Christensen, the top 30.
Yeah, and then we're looking at cars several laps down or retirements here for Scotty Harris in 31st, having a tough race. Harry Inwood, a retirement there, 15 laps down. Scott Barlow, 19 laps down. Scott Stevenson, 25. And last on the timing sheet, there's a story in this one, Ethan Grigg Galt.
Indeed, there is a shocker of an evening for our championship leader in a round that could well prove to be decisive in the outcome of this Circuit XL series when we get to the end of the season.
Well, an exciting two races where it was very, very far from predictable.
Indeed, and joining us in the commentary box for a bit of a chat, pleased to welcome in our race one winner, Ben Smith. Ben, really good result for you in the opening race of the night where you were able to hold off Jack Boyd, but caught up in a couple of dramas late in race two.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good. Great to see the practice all week's paid off, so can't wait to get on to the next one.
You've had an up and down start to the season, Ben. Obviously, you had a pretty strong round at Laguna Seca to kick things off. Then you had an absolute shocker in round two at Brands Hatch. A mediocre weekend at Phillip Island. So how much of a confidence boost is it for you to be back on the pace tonight?
Oh, the pace has always been there. I'm just a bit of a retard and can't put it all together when it counts, like especially getting second position at Phillip Island and then just forgetting about cold tyres at turn two and just shooting straight off. So pace is there. It's just needing to put it down, really.
I need to ask you about what is probably the most controversial incident of the night, which is the contact between you and Ethan Grigalt in race one. You were side by side heading down into turn one. How did that incident unfold from your perspective?
Oh, I just thought he was going to turn in a bit earlier due to his shallow line and just misjudged it pretty much and tapped him in the rear.
Yeah, obviously a controversial incident and ended up being a pretty tough weekend for Ethan Grigalt. But obviously really good battle between yourself and Jack Boyd in races 1 and 2. Were your tyres starting to go there towards the end of race 2?
Yeah, and it was getting a bit hot underneath the helmet.
Yeah, that's probably a common complaint among all racing drivers, although quite literally in your case, we saw on the on-screen vision there that you were wearing your helmet and hands device. Did anybody tell you that for a hands device to work properly, though, you do have to have the harness over the top of it?
I had a spare seatbelt sitting in the XL out in the shed, and I just ran out of time today to bolt it up, but that was the plan, to put the full-on 6-point safety harness on as well.
We loved the visuals anyway. Thanks for the chat, Ben. Just finally, people that you would like to thank behind the scenes of your online racing efforts.
Pretty much all the boys back at Cliff Sim Sports are basically helping push in the TCR at the moment. We seem to be going great guns in that car at the moment with the help of Pitbox. So
Good stuff. There he is, Ben Smith, who was our race 1 winner tonight in round number 4 of the Circuit Excel A Series. Well, David, another fairly dramatic round for the Circuit Excel Series, and one that, as I said, will quite possibly have some pretty big championship implications.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a series a lot of these guys want to do well in before they can, get back out to the racetrack, and it's certainly turned it on round after round. I thought last week was a fantastic race, and then a little tweak to our formats, race by race, keeps it interesting. Progressive grid for this one meant we had some drivers really charged through the field, which was great to see.
Good stuff. Thanks for your company, David, and thanks for your company to all of you who've tuned in tonight on the SimSpeed TV network for round 4 of the Circuit Excel E-Series presented by Shannon's Insurance. Plenty of action coming up, of course, in the online e-racing world. We've got 4 of Australia's best sim racing drivers taking part in round number 1 of the Tag Heuer Porsche Esports Super Cup, which gets underway just after midnight tonight. We also have tomorrow afternoon, which will be coming your way on SimSpeed TV, a GT race with some of the biggest names in Australian motorsport as well. Make sure you stay tuned for those ones. Big thank you for your company right around the world on SimSpeed TV. On behalf of David Haynes, I'm Lockie Mansell. See you next time. Bye for now.
Close racing, definitely. Very, very close. The cars are very evenly matched. You've always got a battle pack, so yeah, it's fantastic fun. It is fantastic fun.
With the 35 XLs around you, it's always tight racing with everyone throughout the category.
What brought me to the category was it was a cheap form of motor racing, where it's competitive, where all the vehicles are all the same, and it comes up to the driver's skill to be competitive.
The racing's close and competitive, and you don't need to have much of a budget to run around in the mid-pack. And the big part of it for me is social. We try and make sure that it's a social event just as much as a competition. Most of us here are just having time off on weekends, so we just want to have a good time.
It's a big community feel. Like, we're all good friends. Everyone helps each other out. It's very much we're all doing it together, as well as the competition in there as well. So it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of big names out here that have been in the game for a long time, such as Bargwana, like they've been here for a long time, and the Excel Australia boys have a lot of knowledge behind them, so they're always helpful around the field.
I guess the opportunities, I think there's a lot of people starting to look a bit at this category as seeing it as a good learning, very basic learning training ground for drivers. And there's some good drivers. There's some drivers in this category that I think are going to get places. I think you'll end up seeing probably 2 or 3 drivers that I can think of maybe end up in supercars.
The opportunities for some people is if they're skillful enough, they can go up the ranks and race in different categories. But this is a good breeding ground for up-and-coming superstars.
Well, Excel is becoming the kind of new way through, from going from XLs through to Formula Fords and so on. But this is becoming a big part of the traditional way through the ranks to the V8 Supercar Series.
I enjoy the category because there's so many people involved, and you can go to different tracks and race in the same category. around Australia?
Well, the category of XLs pretty much race everywhere over Australia, including Bathurst, Phillip Island, Winton, anywhere in Australia you can race these things, which is a lot of fun. And from national events to just big state events, there's a lot of racing out there to be had.
I've done a little bit of race car setup many years ago, but never as a driver. So now I have this opportunity to try and learn a little bit about that. But as a driver, I'm a slow learner, but it's good to get your head around all those things in theory.
The good thing about the XLs are very easy to work on, and it's very cost effective if something does go wrong. So if something goes wrong, someone's willing to give you a spare part because they are so cheap to get and easy to come by.
But the biggest part for me really is the social aspect. We all come out, have a bit of banter, have a bit of fun, and all go home straight.
Yeah, there's a big adrenaline rush, that's for sure. It's good fun. Sometimes you have the white line fever when you cross over, you get a little bit angry, and mainly with yourself if you make a mistake, but it's good fun.
It's funny, sometimes when you're out there you talk to yourself, and you talk yourself around the track, and you talk yourself about different situations. As part of the thought process, I guess, is try and do as much thinking as you can about what the circumstances are. You know, the tyres going off, the brakes good, and what's happening in the car, and you just got to really work your way through it. So quite often you talk to yourself when you're doing that.
Everything's off. Mine just stops. It's weird. There's silence. I do anyway. Like there's no. It's really loud, but there's a silence inside my head, which is really nice. I struggle to switch off sometimes, so yeah, when I'm out there, it happens for sure. Yeah. So this is the Ryan Panovich Memorial Trophy, and it's our South Australian Series marquee event. It's the richest race in the country, which is a cool little fact. So gives people a good chance to win good prizes, and it was started to help us remember Ryan and celebrate his life. Ryan unfortunately had a car accident in 2015 and lost his life and left a big hole in a lot of others. He's missed dearly all the time. He was just absolute legend. I think the best bloke you could, never had a bad word to say about anyone. Just everyone that met him loved him. I miss him a lot, and I hope wherever he is, he sees what we're doing with our lives and he's proud. So yeah, it was a parade lap with all the cars. Last year I thought the parade lap was still the race lap because it was torrential downpour. I'm like, I'm passing a lot of people. So yeah, I've got to make sure to pay attention next time. So it's a very, very special moment. So to see that many XLs in formation. So. I just want to thank everyone that's made the effort for this event. Like there are people that have gone above and beyond, heaps of sponsors, heaps of people have put cash up, and it doesn't happen without them. So and the interstaters that make the trip over, like that's a big thing as well. So that definitely makes our field a little bit more diversified. So everyone that's involved needs to be thanked and patted on the back for sure. It's a very fitting tribute for Oran for sure.
Racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top now!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Sec's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?